The Deep Space Monitoring Station at Ganymede Base picked up the signal at 300 Earth Standard Time. At first, the night shift operators dismissed it as another routine anomaly, perhaps a distant pulsar or a spacecraft calibration error. But something about this signal was different. It pulsed with an otherworldly regularity that spoke of artificial origin, yet it didn't match any known human transmission patterns. Lieutenant Emma Santos leaned closer to her holographic display, her dark eyes reflecting the cascade of data streaming across the screen. She had monitored deep space signals for 7 years, but this was unlike anything in her experience. The signal seemed to shift and adapt whenever their systems tried to lock onto it, almost as if it were alive. "Control, I'm tracking something unusual in Sector 7, she reported, her fingers dancing across the haptic interface. Signal characteristics suggest advanced technology, but it's not matching any known configurations in our database. The response from her superior was immediate. Forward the data to analysis. Keep monitoring but maintain calm silence on that frequency. High above Earth, cloaked in technology that bent light and absorbed radar, the Mercury observation vessel held position. Inside its organic-looking command center, First Hunter Cyrax studied the holographic representation of the solar system with growing interest. Their initial scans had detected something unusual, a planet teeming with artificial structures and primitive spacecraft. "Impossible," Cyrax murmured, their iridescent scales shifting colors with their changing mood. "The inhabitants are barely larger than prey species, yet they've achieved spaceflight." Second Hunter Kareth moved closer, their towering frame casting shadows in the soft bioluminescent lighting. Perhaps they are pets of a greater species, or automated constructs left behind by troop hunters. Cyrax expanded the hologram, focusing on a cluster of satellites orbiting the third planet. The construction was crude by Mercury standards, all sharp angles and rigid materials rather than the flowing, organic designs their species preferred. Yet there was something about the efficiency of the design that gave them pause. "No," Cyrax replied, mandibles clicking thoughtfully. "These are their own creations. See how the designs progress from primitive to more advanced. They evolved these technologies themselves." Their inner eyelids narrowed. How fascinating. And concerning. The observation continued for 3 standard cycles. The Mercury watched as the humans went about their daily activities, cataloging their movements, analyzing their behavior patterns. They observed humans of various sizes working together in ways that defied the natural order. In Mercury society, size determined status. It was the way of all hunter species. Yet these humans seemed to organize themselves based on invisible hierarchies. "They are an aberration," Kareth declared, displaying data from their latest scan. "Their physical capabilities are unremarkable. No natural weapons, minimal sensory acuity, lacking even basic environmental adaptations. By all logic, they should be prey, not spacefaring." Cyrax studied the readings but felt a subtle unease. Something about these humans didn't fit their understanding of species development. They had achieved what should have been impossible without the physical advantages that had lifted the Mercury to supremacy. "Prepare the signal beacon," Cyrax commanded finally. "The High Hunt must be informed. Mark this system for investigation priority 1. As the beacon launched, streaking away faster than light toward the Mercury home system, Cyrax continued to watch the planet below. These humans were an anomaly that challenged everything the Mercury understood about evolutionary superiority. Their very existence suggested possibilities that made the first hunter deeply uncomfortable. Back on Ganymede Base, Lieutenant Santos logged another shift change, unaware that her discovery would soon change the course of human history. The signal she had detected was already being analyzed by Earth's best scientists, its secrets slowly unraveling. Humanity's first contact with the galaxy's apex predators had begun, not with a roar, but with a whisper among the stars. Dr. Sarah Chen hadn't slept in 36 hours, but she couldn't stop staring at her laboratory's main display. The patterns in the atmospheric disturbance data matched something she had seen before, something that had been nagging at the edges of her consciousness for days. "Cross-reference historical archive Gamma 7, she commanded, her voice hoarse from too much coffee and too little rest. The AI complied, and a new set of images flooded the holographic display. Ancient cave paintings from sites across Earth scrolled past her tired eyes. Australia, South Africa, Peru, France. She froze the display on a particular image from the Shavik cave. Among the usual depictions of prehistoric animals was something different. A tall, elegant figure with proportions that didn't match any known human anatomy. Similar figures appeared in other caves, always drawn with a kind of reverence or fear, always associated with hunting scenes. Dr. Chen, her assistant, Marcus Wong, entered the lab with another round of data pads. The results from the spectrographic analysis are ready. Sarah nodded absently, her mind still processing the connection she was seeing. Marcus pulled up the atmospheric anomaly signature again, but this time overlay it with the pattern recognition software we use for xenorchaeology. The computer worked for several seconds before producing a startling result. The energy pattern matched the proportions of the cave painting figures with a 97% correlation. "This can't be coincidence," she whispered, straightening in her chair. Marcus accessed the xenorchaeological database. Search for similar figures in off-world sites. The results made her blood run cold. Similar figures appeared in the ancient art of 3 different worlds humanity had explored during their early expansion. Each world showed signs of advanced civilization, but all had been found mysteriously abandoned. Sarah's hands trembled as she typed out an urgent message to the Earth Defense Council. The pieces were falling into place, but the picture they formed was terrifying. The atmospheric disturbances weren't random. They were cloaking signatures from advanced stealth technology. As she waited for a response, Sarah pulled up another dataset. A colleague had sent her unusual readings from deep space monitoring stations. She overlaid these readings with her atmospheric data, and her breath caught in her throat. The patterns matched perfectly. "Marcus, when did these deep space readings begin?" Her assistant checked the timestamp. "First recorded by Lieutenant Santos at Ganymede Base, 3 days ago." Sarah's fingers flew across her haptic keyboard, pulling up more historical data. "Look at this," she said, projecting a new image. Archaeological findings from Kepler 186. Advanced civilization, suddenly abandoned. But before that, she highlighted a series of cave paintings showing the same tall figures. They were there too. The pieces clicked together in her mind. The mysterious figures weren't just ancient art. They were warnings. Each abandoned world told the same story. The arrival of strange atmospheric phenomena, followed by the appearance of elegant, deadly hunters, and then silence. Her computer chimed with an incoming priority message. The Defense Council had reviewed her data and was calling an emergency session. As she gathered her findings, Sarah noticed something else in the cave paintings, something that gave her a glimmer of hope. In each world's art, the mysterious hunters were depicted as perfect, unchanging. The same forms, the same hunting patterns, repeated across thousands of years and multiple planets. But humanity was different. Human art showed constant change, adaptation, innovation. "Marcus," she said, downloading her findings to a secure data crystal, "I need you to compile everything we have on human adaptation rates. Focus on our ability to change hunting strategies and develop new tools." As she hurried toward the council chamber, Sarah's mind raced with possibilities. The hunters were coming. That much was clear. But if her theory was correct, their greatest strength might also be their greatest weakness. Their perfection had made them rigid, unchanging. And in a universe that demanded adaptation, that might be the fatal flaw that humanity could exploit. Major James Rodriguez stood before a wall of holographic displays in the underground training facility, watching as his unconventional training program unfolded. On one screen, soldiers studied the hunting patterns of wolf packs. On another, a team analyzed how mongooses overcome larger predators. A third showed detailed simulations of ant colonies coordinating complex attacks. Your soldiers are watching nature documentaries, while other bases drill combat formations. General Hayes observed from the doorway, her expression neutral but curious. With respect, General, Rodriguez replied, "We're not preparing to fight a conventional enemy." He gestured to a nearby display where Dr. Chen's analysis of Mercury biology played on loop. Their sensory capabilities exceed ours in every category. Trying to outmatch them directly would be suicide. The general moved closer, studying the data. And you believe the answer lies in Earth's wildlife. Evolution has already solved these problems for us. Rodriguez switched to a new display showing a mantis shrimp. This creature has the most advanced eyes in nature, yet octopi can still evade them through adaptive camouflage. We're not reinventing the wheel. We're learning from 4 billion years of survival strategies. In the training room below, teams worked with prototype equipment based on these natural adaptations. Specialist Zhang adjusted a device inspired by electric eels, while Surgeon Patel calibrated sensors that mimicked a spider's web detection system. Each piece of technology incorporated lessons learned from Earth's smallest survivors. Dr. Chen entered the observation room, carrying fresh data from her latest analysis. "The simulations confirm it," she announced, projecting new figures onto the main screen. The Mercury's enhanced senses follow predictable patterns. They're perfectly evolved hunters, but that perfection is their weakness. They haven't needed to adapt in thousands of years. Rodriguez nodded, remembering his grandfather's words about boxing. The perfect fighter is the easiest to beat. They never learn new tricks. "Show me the sensory overload test results." The data painted an encouraging picture. Like any highly specialized system, the Mercury's superior senses could be overwhelmed if presented with the right combination of stimuli. Their perfect hearing made them vulnerable to precisely calibrated sonic disruption. Their advanced vision could be turned against them with carefully designed optical illusions. Team 3, run Sequence Delta. Rodriguez commanded through the comm system. Below, soldiers activated their new adaptive camouflage suits, the material shifting patterns based on ambient light conditions. Unlike traditional stealth technology, these suits learned and adjusted their concealment strategies in real time. "Impressive," General Hayes admitted, watching as the soldiers became nearly invisible. "But will it be enough?" Dr. Chen stepped forward, highlighting a particular dataset. "Look at their hunting patterns from previous worlds. Their textbook perfect predator behavior. And that's exactly the problem. They follow the same strategies every time because those strategies have always worked. They've never needed to innovate." Rodriguez smiled slightly. "And innovation is humanity's greatest weapon. We don't just adapt. We force our environment to adapt with us." He switched to another display, showing the latest training results. "Every time we run these exercises, we introduce new variables. The soldiers never face the same challenge twice." In the training room, Team 3 completed their exercise with record scores. The soldiers moved like a coordinated organism, combining their individual specialties into something greater than the sum of its parts. Just as ants could overcome larger insects through perfect cooperation, humanity would face their hunters with unified purpose. "Authorization granted for full implementation," General Hayes announced, having seen enough. "But remember, Major, we only get one chance at this. The Mercury won't fall for the same tricks twice." Rodriguez watched his troops below, pride evident in his expression. "They won't need to, General, because by the time they figure out our first strategy, we'll have already developed 3 more. That's the real lesson nature teaches us. It's not about being the strongest, it's about being the most adaptable." As if to emphasize his point, the training room transformed into a new configuration, and the soldiers smoothly adjusted their tactics without missing a beat. The art of adaptation was becoming second nature, just in time for humanity's greatest test. The Mercury strike force descended through Earth's atmosphere with lethal grace, their ships moving in perfect formation. First Hunter Cyrax led the vanguard, confident in the inevitable outcome. After all, they had performed this dance of conquest 17 times before. Their first target was a military installation in the Rocky Mountains, selected for its strategic importance and isolation. The Mercury vessels sliced through the cloud cover, their advanced sensors detecting no resistance, no defensive preparations. It seemed almost too easy. That should have been their first warning. The ground beneath the installation rippled like water, revealing itself as an enormous adaptive camouflage sheet. Dozens of small, swift aircraft erupted from hidden hangars, their surfaces shifting colors and patterns like cephalopod skin. The Mercury's targeting systems struggled to lock onto the constantly changing signatures. Impossible, Cyrax snarled, mandibles clicking in frustration. Their technology is primitive. They cannot have developed this level of concealment. But the humans had learned from nature's masters of deception. Each fighter employed different adaptive patterns, creating a dizzying array of false targets. The Mercury's superior vision, evolved to track the slightest movement, now worked against them as their brains struggled to process the overwhelming visual input. Major Rodriguez watched from the command center as the first phase of Operation Phantom Dance unfolded. "All units, execute Pattern Sierra 3, he ordered. The human fighters broke formation, each following seemingly random vectors that nonetheless formed part of a greater pattern, like a murmuration of starlings confusing a falcon. The Mercury ships fired their primary weapons, but their usually precise shots went wide. The human fighters had deployed electromagnetic fields modeled after electric eels, creating false sensor readings that threw off the hunters' targeting systems. What should have been a swift victory was becoming a frustrating dance of shadows. "They adapt too quickly," Second Hunter Kareth reported, their voice tight with tension. "Each time we adjust our targeting algorithms, they change their patterns." In the valleys below, ground forces emerged from hidden bunkers. Soldiers wearing suits based on spider silk and chameleon scales moved in coordinated groups, their movements choreographed to exploit the Mercury's sensory weaknesses. The hunters' superior hearing betrayed them as precisely calibrated sonic pulses created phantom echoes, making it impossible to pinpoint the humans' true positions. Dr. Chen monitored the battle from her station, analyzing the Mercury's responses. "Their ships are maintaining standard attack formations," she reported to Rodriguez. "They're still fighting according to their ancient hunting patterns. They haven't developed any new strategies in generations." The Mercury grew increasingly frustrated as their perfect hunting techniques failed them. Their ships began breaking formation, each commander trying different approaches, but all still bound by their deeply ingrained tactical doctrines. They had never faced prey that could think several steps ahead, that could change its nature in the middle of the hunt. "Launch the swarm," Rodriguez commanded. Thousands of microdrones deployed from hidden silos, their programming inspired by bee colonies. Each drone was individually insignificant, but together they formed complex, adaptive patterns that confused and disrupted the Mercury's sophisticated sensors. First Hunter Cyrax watched in disbelief as their carefully planned assault dissolved into chaos. These humans weren't fighting like prey, nor were they fighting like predators. They were fighting like something entirely new, something that defied natural law by combining the strategies of countless species into an ever-changing defense. "Full retreat," Cyrax finally ordered, their pride bitter in their throat. "Return to orbit and regroup." As the Mercury ships withdrew, Rodriguez allowed himself a small smile. This was only the first encounter, and the hunters would return with new tactics. But humanity had proven something crucial. The perfect predator could be overcome by imperfect prey that never stopped evolving, never stopped learning, never stopped adapting. The real battle was just beginning. 3 weeks into the conflict, the Mercury High Command faced an unprecedented situation. Their tactical displays showed a scattered pattern of victories and defeats, a concept so foreign that they had no protocol to address it. Throughout their long history of conquest, battles had always ended in absolute victory. Their defense patterns make no sense, First Hunter Cyrax reported to the assembled War Council. The holographic display showed dozens of human counterattacks, each using different tactics. They fight like prey, then suddenly strike like predators. They appear weak, then reveal strength. Every time we adapt to their methods, they change completely. In her laboratory beneath the Rocky Mountains, Dr. Chen worked with her team to analyze the latest Mercury response patterns. The data streams painted a fascinating picture of an apex predator struggling to comprehend an entirely new form of warfare. "Look at this," she pointed out to Major Rodriguez, highlighting a particular sequence. "They're still trying to apply perfect hunting strategies to an imperfect battlefield. Their ships move in textbook formations, even when those formations work against them." Rodriguez nodded, watching as the replay showed a Mercury attack squadron maintaining perfect spacing while flying through a human-made electromagnetic storm. Their adherence to doctrine had cost them 3 ships. They can't help themselves. It's not just training, it's instinct. Above Moscow, a Mercury strike force encountered what appeared to be an easy target, a small group of human defenders protecting a strategic resource. But as they moved in for the kill, the humans scattered in patterns reminiscent of schooling fish. The hunters' superior senses, which could track a single target with deadly accuracy, became overwhelmed trying to track hundreds of seemingly random movements that were actually precisely coordinated. "Deploy the adaptive swarm defense," Rodriguez ordered, watching the engagement from the global command center. Thousands of microdrones launched from hidden silos, their programming now evolved through dozens of iterations. Each drone contained a learning algorithm based on insect behavior, allowing the swarm to develop new tactics in real time. The Mercury ships found themselves engulfed in a cloud of tiny adversaries that adapted faster than their targeting computers could track. Every countermeasure they employed was met with an immediate evolution in swarm behavior. It was like fighting smoke, formless, ever-changing, impossible to grasp. Dr. Chen's voice came through the command channel. "Major, we're seeing something interesting in their response patterns. The younger Mercury are starting to show signs of tactical adaptation, but their command structure won't allow them to deviate from established protocols." This revelation sparked a new strategy. Human forces began specifically targeting Mercury formations, led by older, more traditional commanders. The hunters' rigid hierarchy meant they couldn't easily replace experienced leaders, and each loss further disrupted their ability to maintain their perfect hunting patterns. In orbit, a Mercury battlegroup commander watched in mounting frustration as another perfect formation dissolved into chaos under human attack. The humans had developed ships that could split into smaller units, each operating independently yet somehow maintaining coordinated action. It defied everything the Mercury knew about military doctrine. "They're not just adapting their technology," Dr. Chen explained to the Earth Defense Council. "They're adapting their entire way of fighting. Each defeat teaches them something new, while our victories seem to confuse them even more." The turning point came during the Battle of the Sea of Japan. A Mercury fleet, attempting to establish a beachhead for a major invasion, found itself caught in a 3-dimensional battle space where every human tactic was different from the last encounter. Their perfect hunting strategies, honed over millennia of evolution, became a liability as they struggled to cope with an enemy that refused to behave according to natural law. As the Mercury fleet retreated in disarray, Rodriguez received a surprising report. Some of the younger Mercury warriors had attempted to break from traditional formation and adapt to human tactics. Their own commanders had forcibly stopped them, unable to accept such a fundamental change in their perfect hunting methods. The hunters were beginning to trap themselves in their own perfection. The Grand Chamber of the Mercury High Council had never witnessed such discord. Ancient traditions dictated that only the first hunter could speak during strategy sessions, but now dozens of voices filled the crystalline hall with angry debate. "We cannot continue like this," Second Hunter Kareth declared, breaking centuries of protocol. "Our losses mount while the humans grow stronger. They learn from every encounter, developing countermeasures we never imagined possible." First Hunter Sutterax's scales shifted to deep crimson, a sign of both rage and fear. The holographic displays surrounding them showed the latest battle data. Another failed attack, another perfect hunting formation broken by human adaptability. The youngest warriors suggest abandoning our traditional methods. An elder hunter spoke, mandibles clicking in disapproval. They wish to copy human tactics, to fight like prey instead of predators. It is unthinkable. Deep in the laboratories beneath Geneva, Dr. Chen reviewed intercepted Mercari communications. Their translation algorithms had improved dramatically, allowing them to understand not just the words but the cultural context behind them. Major Rodriguez needs to see this, she told her assistant, highlighting a particular sequence. Their leadership is fracturing. The younger warriors want to adapt, but their entire society is built around the idea of being perfect hunters. Change threatens everything they believe in. Rodriguez studied the data in the command center, where holographic displays showed the positions of both human and Mercari forces across the solar system. They're preparing something big, he observed, noting unusual movement patterns among the Mercari fleet. Their traditional tactics have failed, so they're about to try something desperate. His prediction proved accurate sooner than expected. Long-range sensors detected a massive energy surge from the Mercari flagship. Dr. Chen's instruments recorded patterns that made her blood run cold. They're preparing to deploy biological weapons, she announced to the emergency council session. Our analysis shows they're engineered to target human neural pathways. They've abandoned their honor code of direct combat. But the humans had prepared for this possibility. Since the first encounters, Dr. Chen's team had been studying Mercari biology, understanding how their perfect hunting evolution might become their perfect weakness. Their biological weapons are like their tactics, she explained to the assembled leaders. Perfect, precisely engineered, and completely inflexible. They don't account for human genetic diversity or our ability to adapt. The Mercari launch of their bioweapon should have been the end of humanity. Instead, it became their greatest mistake. The weapon, designed to target specific human genetic sequences, encountered a species with more genetic diversity than any the Mercari had ever encountered. 90% of the human population shows natural resistance, Dr. Chen reported, reviewing the initial exposure data. Our genetic diversity, shaped by millennia of adaptation to different environments, makes us virtually impossible to target with a single weapon. But humanity didn't stop at passive defense. Using the Mercari's own bioweapon as a template, human scientists began developing countermeasures that specifically targeted the hunters deliberately maintain genetic uniformity, the very thing they saw as a mark of their evolutionary perfection. In the command center, Rodriguez watched as the Mercari fleet began positioning for what they believed would be their final victory. They still think like perfect hunters, he observed. They expect us to behave like perfect prey, to die according to their plan. Dr. Chen nodded, finalizing the calculations for humanity's counterstrike. That's exactly why we'll win. They chose perfection over adaptation, and in doing so, they stopped evolving. We never did. The Mercari High Council, confident in their perfect weapon, never imagined that their prey would not only survive but turn their own evolutionary stagnation against them. They had forgotten the most fundamental law of nature: adapt or die. Operation Thunderstorm began at dawn. The combined human fleet emerged from hiding spots throughout the solar system, their positions concealed by technology that had evolved through dozens of iterations. Each ship now incorporated elements learned from deep-sea creatures, insects, and even plants, a testament to humanity's ability to adapt and combine natural strategies in unprecedented ways. All units, commence Phase 1. Major Rodriguez commanded from the flagship Endeavor. The fleet split into smaller groups, each implementing different tactical patterns. Some moved like schools of fish, others like hunting wolves, while others mimicked the organized chaos of ant colonies. In the Mercari command ship, First Hunter Cyrax watched the approaching human fleet with growing unease. Their sensors showed contradictory readings. The humans appeared to be everywhere and nowhere at once, their ships switching between different camouflage patterns, faster than the Mercury targeting systems could adapt. They fragment their forces, Second Hunter Kareth observed. A tactical error we can exploit. But even as they spoke, the scattered human ships began moving in ways that defied conventional military doctrine, creating overlapping fields of fire that trapped Mercury vessels in ever-shifting tactical nets. Dr. Chen coordinated the scientific aspect of the operation from her mobile laboratory aboard the Endeavour. "The bio-countermeasure is ready," she reported, monitoring the distribution systems. The engineered compound, designed to exploit the Mercury's genetic uniformity, dispersed through specialized drones that mimic the movement patterns of pollinating insects. The space around Earth's orbit became a three-dimensional chess game where one player kept changing the rules. Human ships executed maneuvers that seemed random but formed part of a larger, constantly evolving strategy. Each time the Mercury adapted to one pattern, the humans shifted to another. "Their formations make no sense," a young Mercury warrior protested, watching as another squadron fell into a human trap. "They violate every principle of proper hunting techniques." The comment earned a rebuke from their superior, but the truth was becoming impossible to ignore. The humans' improper techniques were winning. Rodriguez watched as the battle unfolded according to their fluid battle plan. Unlike traditional military strategies, this one was designed to change and adapt in real time. "Launch the microsatellite swarm," he ordered, initiating the next phase. Thousands of small satellites deployed from hidden positions in the asteroid belt. Each one was barely larger than a human hand, but together they formed a neural network that learned and adapted faster than the Mercury combat computers could process. The perfect hunters found themselves trapped in a web of their own making, their rigid tactics predicted and countered before they could execute them. "The bio-countermeasure is taking effect," Dr. Chen announced, monitoring the data streams. The compound was targeting the Mercury's carefully maintained genetic uniformity, temporarily disrupting their enhanced senses. The perfect hunters were experiencing something they had never faced before: imperfection. In the Mercury flagship, chaos erupted as warriors began experiencing sensory disruptions. Their perfect coordination, maintained through generations of selective breeding, became their greatest vulnerability. Ships collided as pilots lost their enhanced spatial awareness, while gunners found their superior targeting abilities compromised. "We must retreat," Kareth urged, watching as another formation collapsed under human attack. But retreat meant admitting imperfection, violating the most sacred tenet of their society. Cyrax hesitated, trapped between pride and survival. That hesitation proved fatal. The human fleet closed in from all directions, their tactics shifting faster than the Mercury could counter. Each ship operated independently yet in perfect coordination with the whole, like cells in an immune system adapting to fight an infection. "Target their command ship," Rodriguez ordered, watching as the Mercury fleet's movements became increasingly erratic. "Let's show them what real hunters can do." The human ships moved in for the kill, but not as predators stalking prey. They attacked like Earth's ecosystem itself, countless different strategies working in harmony, each adapting and evolving moment by moment, overwhelming the perfect but static hunting patterns of their adversaries. The peace conference took place on neutral ground, a space station orbiting Mars, its architecture blending both human and Mercury design elements. Dr. Sarah Chen stood at the observation window, watching the red planet below while reflecting on how much had changed in the past year. First Hunter Cyrax approached her, their movements still graceful but lacking the predatory confidence of their first meeting. The biological countermeasure had forced their species to experience imperfection for the first time in millennia, and that experience had transformed them. "Your species continues to surprise us," Cyrax said, their scales shifting in patterns that the human translators now recognize as indicating deep thought. "Even now, in victory, you adapt and change. The station's design incorporates our aesthetics when you could have imposed your own." Dr. Chen turned to face the towering figure. "Adaptation isn't just about survival," she explained. "It's about growth, about becoming something more than what we were before. Even this conversation represents both our species adapting to new possibilities. In the conference room, Major Rodriguez and Second Hunter Kareth reviewed the terms of the peace agreement. The document was unique in galactic history, not a surrender, but a framework for coexistence and mutual development. "Your younger warriors show remarkable potential," Rodriguez observed, watching a group of Mercari studying human tactical simulations. Once freed from the constraints of perfect hunting doctrine, they're learning to innovate. Kareth's scales rippled with what humans now recognized as agreement. "The younger ones speak of combining our natural abilities with your adaptive strategies. Such thoughts would have been heresy before. Now we see them as evolution." The peace terms reflected this new understanding. The Mercari would maintain their territory but release their conquered worlds. In exchange, humanity would share their adaptive technologies and strategies, helping the hunters learn to change and grow beyond their self-imposed limitations. "We thought perfection was the goal of evolution," Cyrax admitted to Dr. Chen as they walked through the station's botanical garden, where earth plants grew alongside specimens from Mercari worlds. "We engineered ourselves to be the ultimate hunters, never realizing we were trapping ourselves in amber." Chen stopped beside a hybrid plant, a successful cross between species from both worlds. "Perfection is stagnation," she said, touching the iridescent leaves. "Life thrives through imperfection, through the constant struggle to adapt and improve. Your society achieved physical perfection, but at the cost of losing the ability to evolve." In the station's training center, human and Mercari warriors began learning from each other. The hunters taught humans about their enhanced senses and natural weapons, while humans showed them how to think creatively, to combine different strategies in new ways. "The galaxy is changing," Rodriguez told the assembled diplomats from both species. "We face challenges that neither of us can overcome alone. Together, combining Mercari precision with human adaptability, we can become something greater than either of us could be separately." The younger Mercari embraced this new philosophy with surprising enthusiasm. Their natural hunting prowess, combined with human innovative thinking, produced capabilities that neither species had imagined possible. The perfect hunters were learning to become perfect learners. As the conference concluded, Cyrax presented Dr. Chen with a ceremonial blade, not as a weapon, but as a symbol of their species' transformation. "We were the ultimate hunters," they said, "but you taught us that there is no ultimate form, only ultimate potential." Chen accepted the blade, understanding its significance. The Mercari hadn't been erased by humans. They had been transformed. Their perfection had been their prison, and humanity had shown them the way to break free. "To the future," she said, using the traditional Mercari hunting call that now carried a new meaning. "May we never stop evolving." The stars watched silently as two species that should have destroyed each other instead chose to grow together, proving that the true mark of intelligence isn't the ability to hunt or kill, but the wisdom to know when to change.